for joining me. I'm Scott, and I do finish repairs. This guitar is a Martin DC Aura. And what happened is the suede strap was left in the case with the guitar attached. And everywhere the strap came in contact, right around the heel cap here, in the cutaway here, the bottom of the guitar, and the soundboard of the guitar. I'm gonna have to find a way to sand that off and refinish the guitar. A lot of the guitar repair control freaks want to make sure that the work I do isn't wasted on guitars that don't come up to the value that they have in their head that is worth working on. In this case, I assure you this guitar is well worth it. The first thing you'll want to do if you take on a job this size, doing refinish work, is making sure that you have a safe environment to do finish work in. In my case, I have an entire garage with air filtration system, exhaust, heating, cooling, dehumidification, etc., etc. I was just out there cleaning actually, and I was horrified by how much dust, dried lacquer dust, is collected up around the floor and everywhere. And these particles go right into your lungs. Now, I don't know the dangerous side effects health-wise that can cause, but I imagine it's a pretty big deal. So it's just things to be mindful of. I was cleaning up the shop and looking at all that dust, but I always try to do most of my prep work inside. So let's see how this goes. Not only does this guitar have nicer inlays than most Martins that, you know, your everyday guitar, it actually has nicer tuners. It's probably Martin's nicest gold tuners with like wooden knobs. Pretty nice. Anyways, I'm going to start in an inconspicuous area first. That way, by the time I get around to the soundboard, I'll have honed my technique and decided exactly how I like doing what I'm going to do by the time I get to the most important part. So let's start here. First thing I've decided is if I end up putting a new finish on this guitar, I'm going to need to prep the surface of the entire guitar with sandpaper. I usually start sanding it all down with 320 grit, or the maroon Scotch-Brite pad is kind of my go-to. This is the maroon Scotch-Brite pad. It's somewhere in the realm of 320 grit. So I figured anyways, to give myself a head start, I'd start with 220 grit, because I know when I do go over it with the 320 grit, the 320 will remove all these 220 scratches. You could even sand the entire guitar with 220 and refinish it. 220 is probably an okay grit for raw wood prior to finishing. I noticed when the customers were here that denatured alcohol was actually a good solvent for this, softening this finish. And tells me that there might be kind of a proprietary sort of finish that Martin uses on these high-end guitars. It might be a type of lacquer, but it's soft enough where denatured alcohol has a reaction with it. See the orange coming up on the Q-tip? So I'm going to take a before and after picture of this right now, send it to the customer. Almost gone right down through to the binding where I've removed 100% of the clear finish. and I'm liking these results. I was hoping that it didn't go too deep into the bare wood or the raw binding, and it doesn't appear to, so I've got a pretty good feeling about this job already, even though I've just started. A little bit of sanding, a little bit of scraping, a little bit of refinishing. It'll be beautiful again. When I say a little bit, this is going to get a little tedious, because I'm going to be probably doing this for hours on end. I might have to give myself an hour a day. Maybe by the end of the week I'll have it all scraped off. By the time I got all of the stain off of the binding, there was quite a dip here in the middle. So I kind of blended it. You can't really, the camera can't really tell that there's a dip, but my fingers can feel it. But the thing that the camera can notice here is that there's a disparity of color. This is kind of a bright white where it's all scratched down to the raw, and this is kind of like a diluted golden brown, which is kind of the factory color. I guess the finish has a little amber in it or whatever it might be. But I'm going to start wiping shellac on here first with clear shellac, just a few coats. And then I'm going to get the diluted golden brown and wipe it till I think it matches. And then I'm going to use Glue Boost, I think, to fill this dip. So let's mix up some shellac. I actually mixed some shellac the other day. This is a new batch. Here's my golden brown. This is gauze pad wrapped in muslin cloth or fabric. And I did another one right here. This is going to be for the color. And this is for the clear. It's like making a little ghost for Halloween. And we'll start with this shellac in this bottle. This is clear. It's a 1.5 pound or two, I think a 2 pound cut really. And I'll give myself a little denatured alcohol and a little bit of this shellac. You can see the shellac has an amber color too. I test to see how wet the pad is by dabbing it like that. A dabba, dabba, dooba. Guys, thanks again for viewing and commenting on all these videos. The channel's doing real good now. Over the last 30 days I've had over 600 new subscribers. Also had like 60,000 views. It's all because of yous. So yeah, I got enough coatage on here now where I think I can switch over to the color shellac. I think this is a better angle. You can see the reflections, and you can see in this cup I've added just a pinprick of the golden brown color. Put a little bit on this pad. I'm going to put a little bit more. Kind of have to squint. We're trying to make passes at this with this diluted golden brown till it matches. And I'm kind of looking at this going, you know, I should have scraped this binding smooth. You can see little sanding scratches in it. I think I might have to sand it back and start over. No big deal. This is in the most hidden area. So like I said, I want to get all my technique kind of written down in stone before I flip it over and do the soundboard or the spot in the middle of the back. But I think this is the right color, and I think this is a good technique. So I'm going to redo this. And if this looks good after the glue boost goes on and I sand it smooth and everything, this will be my blueprint for the rest of the guitar. Okay, I sanded it back. I wiped on some clear, and now I'm wiping on the brown. It only took me about 3 or 4 minutes to have a redo. 'Cause sanding it back was pretty easy. I just sanded it with 320 and 400. Kind of in this direction. I'm actually adding a little bit of vintage amber to the mix. golden brown wasn't yellow enough for me. Needed that slight little tint of yellow. Lemon yellow. I think all vintage amber is lemon yellow mixed with a brown. Can't remember which brown. But these two stains mixed together is my go-to on a lot of projects. I think it's just a popular mix at several different guitar factories. Alright, I don't want to do any more because the clear shellac will add a little bit of an amber color over a few sessions. That's definitely dark enough. I'm going to let it set and then I'll add the glue boost to smooth it out. And when the glue boost goes on, it'll actually lock in that color so that I can't sand through it the next day. Alright, now that that's settled for a few hours, I've got my little caddy of glue boost products here, including some accelerator. I got my exhaust fan running. I'm going to grab a mask. I got the fill and finish thin. I'm just going to dump some right on here and let it kind of self-level itself. Use a paper towel to kind of make sure it spreads around evenly. And we'll give it another shot of the accelerator. That's kind of what glue boost is like. You kind of accelerate it before and after, and it hardens. You can also like spray it right on a paper towel and kind of push it around. Maybe as I get into some of the third and fourth layer, I'll do that. I'm going to put a little bit more here. Kind of spread it around a little wider area. Yeah, and then come in here and wet sand it. This is a good view right here. I can feel with my finger that it's no longer dented in. It's actually standing proud. So that's, you know, good 2 coats is enough to build that surface back up, where once I wet sand it or dry sand it, I guess I don't need to wet sand it, but wet sanding prevents the sandpaper from getting little corns on it, which create deeper scratches, which you don't want. But I'm used to wet sanding everything, so I'd probably just wet sand this with like 600 grit. And it's hard. It's ready to sand. And it's only been 5 minutes. I just remembered, this stuff is actually so hard, I like to use a file first before I sand. It gives me a head start. I'll get about 40 or 50% of the way there with this file first before I start sanding. I actually like using this file. It's one of them StewMac nut and saddle files, and it has this almost rasp-like texture on the coarse side and a finer pillar file kind of thing on the medium side, and it's good for CA glue. It feels smooth already, so I could probably change over to the sandpaper at any time.
Yeah. I'll start sanding now.
I've come up with a technique that I really like here. I wet sanded and put on another clear coat of shellac, and it's looking pretty good. This is what it looked like before. I'm going to put this guitar aside right now and work on some other projects for the rest of the week. There are some other guitars that have come in that have been sitting here for a month or two that I haven't even gotten to yet. And sometimes I'll do that with guitars. If I know exactly what needs to be done with it, I'll just leave it hanging there, and then when I get to it, I'll do it. With this one, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, so I like to get my game plan together. And if you stick around week to week watching my other projects, I'll update you with how this one's coming along with a real brief synopsis here, a couple minutes there. And I appreciate you tuning in and sticking around to the end. We'll catch you later.